Hello again. Now, this time we're going to look at Clooney House, just to the east of Ennis, and we're there because of what it highlights for us about what we don't know happened in the last 200 years. Now, because it's January, there's no need to go out there. It's cold and dark and all that, and we're going to be working from satellite images, ordnance survey maps, and a series of photographs I took nearly 20 years ago now. No need to go out there. It's a working farm now. There's animals, livestock out there, and including a bull. And if you haven't grown up on a farm, then trust me, you do not know how fast a bull can run. So here we go, Clooney House. Here's a photograph of the house in recent times. Now, the photograph is from the Cinematic Country, which is a YouTube channel, and the video on there is called Left to Rot. Now, Hugh has done a superb job on both the drone video and the history of the house, so that might be worth a watch. I'll leave a link to that video on the description on this video, so it might be an idea to go and look at that first and then come back here. Anyway, here's some more photographs of the house. There's some of it which has fallen in. There are the cellars. Look at that brickwork. Imagine that cellar full of wine back in the day. There's a few views of the yard behind the house. As I said, nearly 20 years ago now. There's the walled garden. Is lined with red brick on the inside and stone on the outside. There are buildings in the stable yard. And there's an overview from one of the Ordnance Survey maps. That's the location of the house that you see in the photograph. There is the walled garden, and at the northeast corner there is the stable yard. Now, for the purposes of exploring the geometry, we're going to take a reference line, and that line will come down along the southeast side of the walled garden and bisect the house. We'll find that's the axis around which the geometry is constructed. We'll go out in various directions from here, and we'll take the centre points and go out from there, and we will see why the house and gardens and all that are where they are and orientated like they are. Our first stop is going to be 2.8 kilometres away to the southeast, and the inauguration mound and two standing stones at Maw Eyre. There's the layout at Maw Eyre. There's the mound, the river in blue, the Bullown stone to the north, and the standing stone in the field on the other side of the river to the west. Now, a proper historian would tell me, go away, don't be daft. Maw Eyre could possibly have nothing to do with Clooney House. Maw Eyre has been there for 1500 years. Clooney House was built maybe 300 years ago, and they're completely and totally unrelated. It's not as simple as that. If we go back to the stable yard, we take a line down through the middle of the yard and come out at 90 degrees to our reference line, take that down to Maw Eyre, then we land on the Bullown stone. And if we follow that line, that same straight line away to the northwest, then we hit the round tower in Kilnaboy. That's only one link to Maw Eyre. Let's come back again to the walled garden. We'll do the same thing. Line through the centre, coming out perpendicular to our reference line, and we hit the centre of the mound at Maw Eyre. And following that line away to the northwest, that takes us up to Lemina, and we reach the centre point on a series of marker walls there. There are four little walls in the middle of a very large field, and they're exactly 62 feet in length. We know about 62 feet. If you look at the Lahinch standing stone video, there's more about these same walls there, because they're part of that network as well. We see there an alignment to an almost identical structure 13 kilometres further up into the burn. And there's an alignment to a partial stone circle a couple of kilometres to the west. Now back to Clooney House and the walled garden, the southwest wall. We follow that again at 90 degrees to our reference line. That takes us to the standing stone at Maw Eyre, our third link with the site. That's the standing stone on the west side of the river there. Let's play with this one a little bit. How about if we go away from that line at precisely 90 degrees? I wonder what we'd find. Looking at the line coming down from Clooney House, that's on a heading of 130.15 degrees. So adding 90 degrees to that will give us a heading of 220.15 degrees. And 7 or so kilometres away, we have a direct hit on the turret on Dromoland Hill. That's the one you can see there just beside the M18 motorway between Shannon and Ennis. And it features in my earlier video on Dromoland. So after all that, it does appear that despite the 1,000-year supposed time difference, that there is a link between Clooney House and Moe Eyre. But don't forget, we do not know when Clooney House was actually built. We have documented history going back as far as the birth of Francis Bindon there in the 1690s. But according to the Irish Heritage website, the earlier history of the house is not known. The same website, of course, tells you that the true purpose and nature of the mound at Moe Eyre is actually unknown also. Anyway, let's move on to the rest of the story. To go back to the third line there between the walled garden and the standing stone at Moe Eyre. Halfway along that line there at Corbally, there are two quite unusual semicircular hedges there. And if we complete those semicircles and put centres on those circles, then the line we just talked about goes right through both centres. There's circle number 1 and circle number 2 there. Keep them in mind because we'll be coming back to talk about circle number 1 after I make one final point about Moe Eyre. Now, what if there was another country house which had a similar relationship with Moe Eyre? And there is. The common denominator there is the Francis Bindon that we mentioned earlier. He's credited with designing Newhall House out to the west of Ennis. It's in much better shape than Clooney House, and it has the outbuildings and walled gardens, orchards and all the rest of it. And if we take a line from there to Moe Eyre, we find that it aligns perfectly with the facade there, and everything at Newhall was built to align also with Moe Eyre. Let's come back to Clooney now and look at another feature. Now, because I grew up on a neighbouring farm, I would know the terrain pretty well. And just outside the front door, there's a patch of ground there where the driveway parking area, if you like, was located. And if there's a dry spell in summertime, then there's a patch of ground there that dries up very fast. There's obviously a stone foundation of something underneath there. It's like a place now where they would have had a stone plinth and then a statue or a sundial or whatever on it. It's long gone now, of course, but let's assume there was a sundial there. Let's call it a sundial for the purposes of this exploration. It's relevant because 2 kilometres away to the southwest there is Moe House, which again, big old country house, walled gardens, the whole 9 yards. And there is an area there that the current owners still refer to as the pleasure garden. There's an overhead of Moe with lots of geometry there. But what we'll do is take a line down through the centre of what's left of the house and the pleasure garden, down there along the path, take it away over to Clooney House, and that line hits the sundial. Next one, up to the northwest, there is Inchiquin Lake beside Currafin. There's an island. Inchiquin Island, and on there is a castle. It's King Turlock's Castle. If we take a line from there to the centre point on circle number 1 we talked about a couple of minutes ago, that goes over the top of the Clooney House sundial. Next, let's look at some diagonals on the walled garden and the stable yard. If we take diagonal number 1 there from the walled garden, there's number 2 in the opposite direction, number 3 there, and number 4. And what we find is that number 1 hits the spire at St. Flannan's College. Number 2 takes us directly to the centre point of the stone circle at Mohon. Number 3 hits Tiravannan Castle in O'Callaghan's Mills, about 7 kilometres away. And number 4 hits the building there at Inchicronan Abbey, which is 6 or so kilometres to the northwest. Now, the final thing I want to highlight here is the field boundaries. This is what it looked like in 1842. And this is the very distinctive pattern of field boundaries that's there today. It has been there since at least the late 1800s. what we find is that each and every segment of the field boundaries is aligned to something not far away. Beginning with this odd-shaped field, this one aligns with an almost complete ring fort 2.7 kilometers away. The other side of the same field aligns with a ring fort to the west that's 2.8 kilometers away. The hedge and embankment reaching the top end of that field aligns with a ring fort 3.6 kilometers almost to the south. This one aligns with two ring forts, the furthest of them 3.4 kilometers away to the southeast. This one has a ring fort 2.5 kilometers to the southwest. We can go to each and every one of these fields, and indeed I have done. There's my homework. All these white lines are boundaries which reach a ring fort not more than 3, 4, 5 kilometers away. Even the reference line we started out with, if we carry it along another 6 kilometers across to Clarecastle and across the Fergus, on the opposite side of the Fergus, in a field there is a little mound and a bunch of trees. I don't know what's there. It is unusual. That's a very intensively farmed patch of land. It's unusual that that's been left there. There's the Ordnance Survey map for that field on the west side of the Fergus River there near Island McGrath. There's nothing showing in this Ordnance Survey map. Now, was it deliberately omitted, or was there nothing there at that time? If so, when was it built, and why? If we follow that reference line back in the opposite direction, then only 2 kilometers away, we're looking again on a very busy farm, a hole which has been left there on the side of a hill. There it is from a different angle, and in the middle of a very busy farm, where every square meter is of value, then it's again surprising this has been left as it is. So now at the end of this video we have the same question as always. Why was everything built in such a structured geometric network? We don't have answers right now, but I suppose it's better to have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. That's how it was when I was going to school anyway. Now, please do share this video and let me know what you think. Thank you.